Hello everybody, it's Julia here from the Highly Sensitive Tarot, and I'm here today to do a VR. This one is to Emmay the Grey. She did quite a spontaneous live stream the other day, which was very brave of her. And she talked about the Five of Pentacles, quite a difficult card for her, that she had been able to find some kind of positivities with. And then I noticed that Ramon at Moonscarab had also done a response video to this, had done a VR, so I thought I'd join in and I'd have a go. And I mean, there are loads of cards in the tarot deck that are difficult for one reason or another, but I think, and I could talk about several of them, but I won't. I thought I would just talk about one card actually here today, and I think out of all of the difficult tarot cards for me, this one had the most impact on my life and has since had the most positivities for me. And so I'm always rubbish at showing things when the camera's this way around. It's the Two of Swords. And this is my very, very old and trusty Rider-Waite-Smith deck that I've had since I was 21. So coming up for 34 years. 34 years. Is that right? God, I'm going to be 55 in September. So yeah, 34 years I've had this deck. And it's particularly grubby at the top here, and that is mainly because I carried this card around with me for months on end, and this was about 3 or 4 years ago, and I was in a position in my life where I wasn't using my tarot cards to read with regularly, and it really only because my life was so busy and noisy and chaotic. I just didn't feel I had the room or the space or the peace and quiet really to use my cards how I would like to, but I did used to sit and look through them quite a lot, and I became quite fixated on this card for a time without really knowing why. But at the time, and it's bizarre not really knowing why at the time, but at the time my life was just falling apart really. My health had deteriorated. I was struggling to keep up with work. I felt like I was running to stand still. I had a lot of responsibilities with my family, with my partner, with his children. As I said, my health was deteriorating. I was just struggling to keep going with everything. And as I physically became more and more unwell, I became mentally more and more unwell, to the point where I think I was so depressed I didn't really fully understand why or what was going on, and I just knew that I was shutting down, I think. And I would have periods of time where I would feel quite numb and quite shut down and quite frozen in place, and then I would have times where I would just kind of melt down really, and I would cry, and all of this outpourings would come out, and obviously that was quite destructive and caused troubles within my relationship. But I spent such a lot of the time like this, like I was frozen in place, like I was trapped and stuck and unable to move. And it was like I was trying so hard to keep everything together, to keep everything stable and balanced and in place, that I didn't realise it was breaking me. You know, I was having a real dark night of the soul. And it kind of came to a head, as these things do, around about 3 years ago. And I knew that I needed to make some quite significant decisions in my life, head over heart decisions, but I just didn't seem to be able to make them. And in the end, I decided I just didn't want to be alive anymore. And I mean, I smile and I laugh about this now, but at the time, it just seemed like the most logical solution. I kind of knew I needed to make a lot of big changes, but making those changes would have meant leaving my home. And I was so attached to my home that the thought of losing my home and leaving my home seemed about the worst thing that there possibly could be. And it actually felt like it might be simpler and easier just not to be here anymore. And that was how things came to a head, really. And thankfully I got some help, and I chatted to people, I talked to people, I got a lot of support actually. It was the first time that I'd really told people in my life, I suppose, just how awful I felt and how lacking in hope I was for the future, I suppose. I got some therapy, and I had a wonderful therapist, and in the course of that therapy, we really looked at this card. I used to take this card to my therapy sessions. It would be in my pocket and I'd get it out and put it on the table. And I think at first the therapist that I had didn't know how to deal with this and didn't know how to deal with me. But I think she quite quickly recognised that this was a really good way for me to be able to express myself when I didn't have the words, you know, when I wasn't able to articulate what I wanted to say. And she very quickly actually helped me to take the blindfold off, because that was what was necessary. I needed to take the blindfold off and really take a long, hard look at what was wrong, you know, of what decisions I needed to make, what things I needed to face up to. And it wasn't until I'd taken the blindfold off that I was able to put the swords down, you know, if you know what I mean. It just, for so long, it had just felt so much safer just to stay still and keep everything balanced and avoid the issues. You know, it's like I was completely frozen and in terror of making the decisions that were necessary. And through the course of my therapy and my counselling, I obviously realised and was able to process the fact that I was making things worse, really. My resistance to change, my avoidance of change, I was making things worse for myself. I was prolonging my own agonies, prolonging my own torment. And actually during the course of my therapy, I started to make those very difficult decisions. And now, 3 years on from that time, I can look back and I actually feel an immense amount of gratitude towards this card, because although it's not the Tower or the Devil or the Ten of Swords or the Three of Swords or one of those kind of cards which is instantly recognisable as difficult, this one kept me in the most painful place for so long, but was also my source of liberation, I suppose. And although I'm certainly not perfect in my ability to make difficult decisions, I'm certainly a lot better than I was. And I certainly find it a lot easier to make necessary changes, I guess, these days. I've lost a lot of my fear of change, because, you know, the things that I did change 3 years ago were huge. You know, I turned my life upside down. I gave up my career. I gave up a relationship that I was in. I gave up my home. And I don't regret any of it. It was necessary and important. And I think without this card, I'm not really quite sure what would have become of me, to be honest. So I'm immensely grateful for this card, because I feel that this has opened new doors for me. It's opened a new reality for me. And yeah, there we go. I think that's it. I don't know what else I can say. It's a very positive card for me these days, because when this comes up, I know that it's time to stop procrastinating, it's time to stop reflecting, it's time to stop avoiding, and it's time to act. It's time to do something. And I know in my heart that the doing, the action, relieves the pressure and it makes things feel better. So there we go. That's my difficult but positive card. And I shall see you all again soon. Thank you.